Welcome everybody to the Play, Recreation and Sports Committee meeting for Wednesday the 23rd of February. Just remind you that the meeting is recorded and live streamed on Council's YouTube channel. We're all aware that we're in protection framework level red, and everybody understands the requirements of wearing masks and signing in. Health and safety, all those present are more than aware of that. So I'll just please ask councillors to identify themselves when speaking. Moves us on to apologies. I have apologies for Councillor Bowen, early departure. Deputy Mayor Alicia Rutherford is sick, and Councillor Naylor is on council business. Is there any other apologies?
Councillor Naylor for late arrival. Oh, sorry.
I just got Councillor Naylor.
He is also on council business.
Councillor Beatty is also on council business. Any other apologies? No, I will move them. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Hancock, and all those in favour, please show of hands. Thank you. I'm not sure about those online. And that's passed unanimously. Thank you. Additional items, I'm not aware of any. Declarations of interest, have none. Public comment, we have none. So we'll move on to our first presentation. And that is on page 7 of your agenda. And we'll welcome on the General Manager of Manawatu Cricket, James Lovegrove. Can you hear us, James?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Good, yes, thank you. You're underway.
All right. Am I able to share my screen? Is that how we're going to do the presentation?
Yes.
Is it being shared at the moment?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so you can see the first page, which is Palmerston North City Council Manawatu Cricket Partnership.
No, we can't see that.
What is Rosa there? Does Rosa need to? Do I need to do something to share that?
We've got his desktop screen. We're seeing his desktop screen.
We're seeing your desktop screen is what we're actually seeing.
Okay. Rosa, is Rosa there? Sorry.
Yep.
Yep. Does she want to share the presentation as I go through it, or what? I'm not sure what I need to do to share this.
Just give us 1 second. James will get it organised.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. I think we've all got access to the presentation, haven't we, on our devices?
No. It's Manawatu cricket. Manawatu cricket. Okay, James, we're underway.
All right. Thank you. If I'm not sure if I can control the presentation as it goes through, but if Rosa can, that would be great as it scrolls through. Here we go. First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to present. The theme I've chosen to go with is the partnership between PNCC and Manawatu Cricket and celebrating cricket in our community. Just a brief update on Manawatu Cricket community for the councillors who are new to our programs. We're based Palmerston Northfield and Tararua across to Dannyburg, Sanson, and we have teams from Rangitikei and Levin, 14 senior clubs, 12 junior clubs, 53 schools this year, and programs for 5 to 75-year-olds, and about 5,500 active members. Our strategic plan, I put this up here, it's relevant because the projects that we've partnered on and over the last 10 years, we share a common vision, and that's for an inclusive and diverse cricket community and providing participation, development, enjoyment and success. So that's the backbone of what we do, and it's very similar to the goals of council. Manawatu Cricket last year celebrated 125 years, and we've been really intrinsically linked with the council over those 125 years, and many key council people have played significant roles, from the Ongleys to the Chilboroughs to everybody in between. So it's been a fantastic relationship and one we're very grateful for. Over the last 10 years, that's had a specific focus, and that's to improve the facilities and resources needed to deliver cricket to our community, not just for playing, but enjoying and participating and officiating and volunteering. What I'd like to share now is what we've achieved over the last 10 years, and I'd like to acknowledge some people and thank them for what they've done for cricket over the last 10 years. So 10 years ago, Fitzherbert Park lost its first-class cricket licence, which meant we couldn't host international cricket, we couldn't host first-class cricket, we couldn't welcome CD cricket or tournaments. So that was a big blow for us. And so Councillor Harpiter and a number of other people have been passionate supporters of cricket and really led and driven these projects. So it started with an irrigation and drainage program for Fitzherbert Park, moved on to developing the pitches up to a first-class level, employing a team and a groundsman who were passionate about cricket and had the expertise to deliver fantastic wickets. Cricketers are quite fussy people, and they love good wickets, both for bowling and batting. We developed the Bruce Turner Pavilion, which is a facility with shared ownership, making it a lot more user-friendly and a place that's very welcoming, not just for the teams, but for the public, and officials put in doors along the front too to make it a really good viewing area. The Vincero Borough Scorers Box was open as part of the 125 celebrations. This was one of the requirements of the ground to have a scorers box, and it's a fantastic vantage point for enjoying cricket. And it was nice that Vern's wife was there to open the scorers box last year. The McVicker nets, Colin McVicker and the McVicker family are a big part of Manawatu history. So one of the requirements for hosting first-class cricket is to have practice facilities on site. So between the council and Manawatu Cricket and various funders, we sunk $260,000 into a practice facility, which is now enjoyed by, it facilitates first-class cricket, but it also allows juniors and seniors, girls and boys, men and women to enjoy fantastic facilities. And if you scroll down, the Mayor, Grant Smith, is opening those facilities, and he even bowled a ball, I think, down the nets. So there's a couple of other photos there of the 125 celebrations, and then our women's and men's team enjoying those nets. And so what that meant was in January 2021, Fitzherbert Park received its first-class cricket warrant of fitness, which meant we could host tournaments, events and major games. And then I think the next few photos from the participation, development, enjoyment, success slide, that's just showing an event on the 27th of December, which was the biggest crowd at Fitzherbert Park since the early 80s. So 40 years ago, there were big crowds at Fitzherbert Park, and with the support of council, we've managed to bring it back up to that standard. The Super Smash game was a men's and women's game at Fitzherbert Park. The park was packed, and one thing to note is that the park was packed for both the men's and the women's games, which was quite unique and shows the strength of the female game in our region. The crowd at that day was over 2,000, which was the biggest crowd for Super Smash games in New Zealand this year. So there was 60 Super Smash games, and Palmerston North's crowd was the biggest one. It was hosted on December the 27th with the idea of capturing the Boxing Day races crowd, the Speedway crowd, and those people in town between Christmas and New Year. It helped that there were fantastic weather and two good teams playing. Great exposure for our region. It was live on TV1. The women's game was live on TV1, free to air, and the men's game was live on Spark Sport with an audience in New Zealand in excess of 100,000 and overseas in excess of 1 million. As part of our partnership, we had snippets. The Palmy promotions team gave us great snippets to promote the region, and they were played throughout the day, both on TV1 and on Spark Sport. A great crowd and a real community feel, a lot of families. The grass bank was full. We had a large corporate event with 21 gazebos sold to corporates so they could bring families along, acknowledged our sponsors, our volunteers, and various life members and other groups in our community. So it was a great way to share cricket with our community. If you're down to the side success, Palmy, the hub for cricket, that's sort of an overview of games this year at Fitzherbert Park, which we've been able to host because of the investment and support the council have put into Fitzherbert Park and the grounds. So these range from first-class cricket games down and include Gillette Cup, Gillette Venus, which is the premier secondary school competition for New Zealand. We're hosting another New Zealand national competition later in March, hopefully, and there's a variety of cricket festivals on that list. The last one on the list is the Indian Premier League, which is a cultural festival in the first weekend of April. We also host the largest girls' cricket tournament in New Zealand this year. And there's a photo of that with the girls in front of the fantastic grandstand. Because we were the CD representative to host the World Cup Trophy Mace Tour, and you can see in that photo with Ross Taylor and Will Young, the Black Caps, with the grandstand full, and people believe that's the first time it's been full since about 1984, so that was fantastic in the middle of winter, blue sky day in Palmy, and a great event. And there's some great photos to show how our community is a inclusive and diverse community, a range of ages and very much a spread of cultures. Cricket's a great game for bringing the cultures together. If we look at other success, at the moment in our CD competition, Central Districts competition, both our men and women hold the cup and the championship. We're the location of choice for CD cricket festivals. Our men's club competition is bucking the trend, and for the last 4 years has grown, adding teams each year, and now has 32 teams. We've got growth in masters cricket and social cricket, and this can be directly related to the fantastic facilities that the council provide. Not just Ongley Park, Manuaroa Park, Fitzherbert Park, but also Papaoia, Paneri, and we reuse parks in the Manawatu District Council as well. So we're very, very lucky and very appreciative. We've got a country schools program that operates to make sure all kids have an option to play cricket. And we've piloted a New Zealand cricket program, Tuatahi Kirikiti, and we've had great success at Te Kura Owaido and Central Normal School, getting non-traditional schools into playing cricket. Our girls club and our female pathway is leading New Zealand. We've had, and this is filtering through to our secondary school girls competition, which has 12 teams, which is the largest in CD and the largest in the North Island. First class ground needs a first class team. We're very lucky to have Andy May leading the team, looking after those parks, and he's well supported by Dave Evans, Kathy Diva-Todd, who are they're very, very open to what cricket needs and really supportive, and we really appreciate that. We have got first class cricket, so they call 4-day cricket first-class cricket. So that returns in March 20th, and with an invitation to all councillors and basically all the public to come and enjoy that match. We have got goals, and the council have approved the development of a unisex toilet facility at Fitzherbert Park, and that's underway, the first stage in this financial year and the second stage next year. And we have work to do on the outfield too. Manawatu Cricket have a new strategic plan in place coming in next year, and we'll work closely with the council on what that looks like. Like all community sport, funding, costs, youth participation, supporting our clubs and appreciating our volunteers are the challenges that we face. But because we've got the backbone, which is the facilities and the grounds, those other challenges are easily, well, not easily, with hard work we can overcome them. It's really important. One of the reasons I appreciate coming today is to acknowledge the support from Grant Smith, our Mayor, Leonie Harpiter, who was the driving force, led a fantastic team from the council to develop our grounds, Kathy Devatod and Dave Evans and Andy May, who is the one who gets his hands dirty to produce these facilities that give kids, adults, men and women and professional players the chance to perform and present a game that the community can enjoy. That's it from me. I just really appreciate the long and strong relationship between the Palmerston North City Council and Manawatu Cricket Association. So that's the theme I've chosen today.
Brilliant, thank you, James. I'll ask councillors for questions, but I'll start off. Has the school cricket been majorly affected with our current situation we're in, or are you seeing the comeback all right?
School cricket, it's a bit of a challenge because schools can't host inter-school games on their own grounds, and so that's put a greater ask on the council grounds, but we're working with schools to ensure that we can deliver that. And cricket's very pro-vax and very supportive of the mandates, but we're one game that is not requiring vaccine certificates to play, so it's because being an inclusive sport's important, we're one of the few secondary school sports that are able to operate safely following Sport New Zealand guidelines without demanding vaccine mandates.
That's really good to hear, really good to hear. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Harpler.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, James, for your presentation. I just wanted to ask you about funding and how easy Manawatu Cricket had found to get funding from community.
Thanks, Leonie. Well, for major events like the Super Smash game, the infrastructure we had to put in because it was a TV game was significant. The council made a great contribution through their events fund of 10,000, and Sport Manawatu are always very strong and supportive backers of any event, so we got 18,000 for them. In terms of general funding, the Class 4 money is still there, but we have noticed this year that we are getting turned down more than we used to, and so it depends on timing. If we're in a good period for funding, the funding's there, but as soon as there's a lockdown in Auckland, it has a significant effect on what's available.
Yeah, I realise that there's a tougher community at the moment. Everything's tough. Thank you, James.
The Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, James. Good. Thank you for the presentation. It was a good one. Just on that fixture on the 27th of December, you made some comments about there was a whole lot of infrastructure that needed to be put in for the TV side of it. Do you think if it was more of a regular fixture, i.e. you had it for the next 3 years, you could do some of that work or offset some of that work internally or yourself?
Yes, and that's a goal. At the moment, we're working with New Zealand Cricket and CD Cricket to secure a date, hopefully the 27th of December, for a 3 to 5 year period. And so people can start planning for that event in our city, but also we can start looking at how we can minimise the one-off costs. Scaffolding is crazily expensive, 28,000 for 3 scaffolding towers. But we're very open to looking to partner with either private or public enterprise to make sure we can minimise those costs.
Thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, James. Question that I had kind of builds on your earlier comment around striving to be an inclusive sport. And I realize you had to sort of constrain yourself to 10 minutes of presentation. So I'm just wondering if you could unpack that a bit, sort of what's being done to sort of diversify participation in cricket, both from a player point of view as well as from a fan base point of view?
Yeah, good question. And it was really heartening at the World Cup Mace Tour to see such a diverse community. Obviously, there's a big Indian and subcontinent following of cricket, and they were well represented at that function. We've found too through our Indian Premier League, which invites Indian cultural groups or cultural teams right from Whangarei to the South Island who come to play against other Indian teams. That's a really neat, and it's a totally different experience cricket-wise, but that draws our Indian, Sri Lankan, Pakistan community together. We've also had a number of initiatives working with Sport Manawatu, the great work they do with refugees, delivering cricket programs to refugees, and our Tuatahi Kirikiti project in schools, which we've piloted with the support of the Tū Manawa Fund from Sport Manawatu, has really made that introduces cricket to the first time to non-traditional schools in Māori Pacifica communities, and it takes it all the way through from just developing their interest to providing the link to playing cricket on a regular Saturday, which is it's really neat to have three teams this year that have come through that Tuatahi Kirikiti program.
Cool. Thanks, James. Appreciate the insight, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, James, for the presentation. It's quite lovely to hear how cricket is having a bit of a renaissance. Last year, the women players came to our to our long-term plan submissions and told us that their changing facilities were not adequate. You mentioned the unisex toilet facilities, but are the plans afoot for the changing situation for women to be improved, or is that still an ongoing need?
We've had great support from the council with that project. I'm probably a better general manager than I am an estimator of the cost of the project. So the funding was approved, I think it was around 100,000, which doesn't go far these days. So the first stage, as you know, whenever you do work, it opens up a can of worms in terms of earthquake strengthening and fire safety and things like that. So that's basically will be spent this financial year on the planning and getting ready for the project, and the architect and project manager hope that the next stage, so to actually have female or unisex fit for purpose dressing rooms, will take place in April. I think it's April. It'll be happening in 2023, so we'll be ready to go at the end of 2023. But yes, I'm really happy with the support and the progress we've made there.
That's great to hear. Thank you for giving us the update.
Thank you, James. There's no more questions from councillors. I'd like to just add that, you know, what a fantastic effort yourself and your committee and your supporters and volunteers have done to get it up and firing. And I mean, first class cricket with the biggest crowd, TV, and on it goes. It's just encouraging. It's absolutely fabulous and I just want to acknowledge the work you've obviously done to bring that back to where it is. So thank you, and I just ask councillors if any of them have any comments. Councillor Butt.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to acknowledge and thank James and his team, the fantastic work they have done to bring the first-class cricket back to our city. And congratulations on getting the largest crowd of the Super Smash in whole of the New Zealand. I guess this was the first step, and the next step should be to bring the international cricket back in Palmerston North, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you.
The Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, James. And look, I think you framed it up really well with the partnership being 125 years young. I too just want to acknowledge that, and also some of our officers. The head groundsman, Andy May, and the Parks team need special acknowledgement, because cricket is unique. It is based on a surface, and that ground or that pitch needs to be in top order, and Andy is a trooper in that space. I think the projects, the getting first-class cricket back has been fantastic, but actually it's the underlying cultural health of the sport with junior numbers, huge female participation and diversity, which is the real strength of the code in our city at the moment. Projects like the unisex female facilities project, that'll happen as the other projects have happened. But just want to acknowledge your leadership from the sports side, James, and your board and other volunteers. And I'm sure Councillor Butt will be leading a council cricket team at some stage. Thank you.
There's no further comments, so James, I just once again like to... Sorry, Councillor Harper.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say thank you to you, James, for one other thing that hasn't been mentioned. I think you do a lot of work behind the scenes in terms of getting funders on board. And it is, in this environment, it is really hard to get funders on board. You do a lot of fundraising, and we really appreciate the work to get those funders on board, because for us not to have to pay for everything and for you to have to get those external funders there, it is a really big effort. So thank you for what you have done. We do appreciate it. So well done, and well done for what you've done to date. Thank you, James.
Just double check, James. There's no other comments. So I'd just like to say again, thank you very much. It's just amazing what you've done, and we just so much appreciate the positive presentation. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'll look to move the resolution that the committee receives the presentation for information. Seconder, Councillor Dennison. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Against? That is passed unanimous. Thank you. We move on to our next presentation from Andrew Jackson, Chief Executive of Manawatu Rugby.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you for the invitation today. I'll just see if we've got the screen share going on.
Yes.
You can all see that and hear me okay?
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
You've also got my notes, have you? No, maybe not. Kia ora tātou. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you again. And I just wanted to start by tautokuing some of the comments that you made to James. Fantastic presentation, James, and thank you for all the work that you do in the community to support our communities being active. That was really fantastic. And James and the cricket are a really good advocate for Manawatu Rugby and work well together, so just to acknowledge that also. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today. I've got Sean Eade here, Marketing and Sponsorship Manager as well. We're going to tag team through and happy to answer any questions as we go. I thought it would be a good place to start just on our 3 strategic priorities that we put in just short of a year ago when I came on board with Manawatu Rugby. So the first strategic priority for us was around one team and one whānau. So we're lucky enough to have over 5,500 participants that take part in this great game, and that's excluding mums and dads that come on the sideline, some of our referees, our touch judges, etc., that come along, our coaches and our managers. And then we feed into our representative teams, our academy program, and then our two flagship teams, the Cyclones and the Turbos. So that's our one team, one whānau. In terms of our community connection, we're really grateful for the local community and the support that gives us. And so a connection to our community is something that we want to continue to strive to work towards and become more present in our community and seen in our community. And lastly, and really important for us, is on and off the field winning. Sometimes the scoreboard doesn't always reflect the way that we would like it, but actually we are great people, great human beings doing great things off the field as well, and you get to see that through some of the amazing work that our Cyclones do and our Turbos through planting days, etc. So there are our three priorities that we're going to continue to grow on. Just in terms of participation for the year, we were quite pleased how we came through the last year. We had our total player pool was up 16%, seniors up slightly, teens down slightly, our juniors were up, referees slightly down, female participation significantly up, and our coaches was up as well. So in terms of looking at a COVID year, how our community game came through, we were pretty happy with that. In terms of how we fared nationally, in terms of participation, we actually moved up a couple of steps in the rankings, and we came past Taranaki in this area and also Southland. So we increased participations on those two regions, which is always nice when you're slightly competitive. I'm just going to hand over to Sean to take you through our performance team and the highlights from the seasons from them.
All right, so our Manawatu Turbos had a pretty solid year. So earned their first semi-final since 2019 and their first home semi-final, perhaps the most important thing, bringing playoff rugby back to Palmerston North for the first time since 2014. The Turbo season was obviously heavily disrupted by the COVID lockdown, which meant that the really strong start that our team had to be put on hold. But the high-performance team, the coaches and the players worked really hard at remaining engaged and continuing their training programs in isolation, which allowed us to continue to have success when we came back onto the field. But what was really pleasing from our campaign was the number of our young homegrown players that came through. So there were 5 players who debuted last season who graduated directly out of our academy. And if we look at that home semi-final that took the field, the 23 that took the field, 11 of those have graduated from the Manawatu Rugby Academy over time, which is a pretty significant proportion of our squad. So from our squad, 8 Turbos were signed to Super Rugby squads, and we've got a large number of other players who are now across the country. Well, not across the country; they're all down in Queenstown, but all away as injury covers. So it's great to see our local guys getting an opportunity to perform on the national stage. And then, of course, there are our 2021 Manawatu Cyclones, who showed the value in their work developing off-field culture and community connections, a piece that the team's been working on for the past 5 years, and pulled together for what was truly an outstanding season. So our Manawatu Cyclones were unbeaten through their competition. Their closest match all season was a 39-12 win over Northland, and that dominance continued through the playoffs with a 55-12 win in the final against Hawke's Bay, which is always a pretty good province to get one over on. And it's great to see that the side has been really well rewarded through Super Rugby Aupiki, the inaugural Women's Super Rugby competition. We have an amazing 14 players in the Hurricanes Power squad. We've also got our head coach, Fusi Fianati, as an assistant coach, and our strength and conditioning coach, Luke Vasu, leading the strength and conditioning side. So the rewards of the work that our local ladies have put in has been rewarded at a national level now. And a great opportunity for them to take the next step as women's rugby starts to move more towards, not into professional, but towards professional. And I guess, as AJ touched on before, community connection was really important. So that message was with our teams from the start of the year, and they led that through getting out as much as they could in the community. So our Cyclones and Turbos visited more than 30 schools. They joined forces with Manawatu Wheelchair Rugby. We linked with Te Tihi for the Jeff Thompson Keep Well program. and then ran junior rugby workshops across our province, collected and player-led programs for charities like Pink Ribbon and the Ronald McDonald House, and we continued our annual native planting program in conjunction with Higgins and Horizons Regional Council. We were also really pleased from a community point of view to be able to offer our first game of the 2021 season as a free event. So we had the Turbos and Cyclones both playing on a Friday night, kicking off the NPC season, and both teams put on a great show, and it was great to be able to, I guess, thank the community for their continued support by allowing them free access to that game.
What does 2022 look like for Manawatu Rugby? Really embedding those strategic priorities also. And as all of us in the sports and just life in general, what does COVID look like and what does that mean for organised sports? So thinking about that and planning around that, particularly in our community rugby space, which is where we start first, and what offers that we can put out for our community to encourage all to be able to participate in this game. We've seen some COVID impacts through sponsorship as well, so working hard in that space. Some exciting opportunities that we have for 2022. We've got 3 current board positions up and 1 president's position up. We've received 9 really high calibre applications for our board, and interviews are happening today and tomorrow, which is really exciting. And also in terms of recruitment for staff, we've had a large staff turnover. So we've got a large amount of roles in the market at the moment and are really excited about the opportunities those bring. One that we've just appointed, Kahurangi Sturmy, who's one of our standout Cyclones players. She will be our women's activator role, so getting out into our community and encouraging young women to participate in rugby and have some kind of engagement, whether it's coaching or playing or refereeing. We've also got a women's and inclusion role out in the market as well, and that's around how do we broaden our reach into our community? What does non-participation communities rugby engagement look like? So exploring those opportunities as well. And the last one that we're interviewing for tomorrow is a club lead in rugby, which we've identified through the last year, like just getting in and supporting our clubs where they need it in terms of if it's facility upgrades, if it's governance, etc., what supports are needed and how can we help our clubs to thrive, because that's what makes a healthy Manawatu Rugby, healthy Cyclones and healthy Turbos. I'll just hand back to Sean now just to touch on the competitive end of the season and the draws.
So some of you may have seen the NPC season has had a little change in structure. So what doesn't change for us is we still have 10 games this season and 5 home games, but instead of the premiership and championship structure that we have participated in, it's now everyone competing for one title again. I guess back to the old days of NPC rugby. With 14 teams, we can't play all 14, so only 10 games, so they've split us into odds and evens pools, and that's in relation to where we finished last season. So we have all the games against the odds teams, and then we have some crossover games as well. So what you see on the screen is our possible home games. We know these are the teams that we're going to play, these 10 teams. New Zealand Rugby is still working on their draw at the moment, but based on who we've played recently at different venues, this is what we're expecting our season outlook. So Taranaki, Otago, Canterbury, Auckland and Hawke's Bay, our likely home games this season. And if we look across to our Wharapama Cup, that hasn't changed structure. And there was a little bit of confusion at the end of last year with the NPC not running promotion relegation. Well, our ladies have been promoted, and we've guaranteed our ladies will be competing in the premiership competition, which we're very excited about after how dominant they were in the championship. So once again, this draw here is yet to be 100% finalised, but 6 games this season, 3 at home, 3 away. And this is our expectation: Counties Manukau, Bay of Plenty and Wellington at home, with Waikato, Auckland and Canterbury away. And this competition works based on just the pure pool structure, semis and finals at the end of the year.
Thanks, Sean, and thanks for your time. We're happy to answer any questions, and I'll just try and stop sharing screen so we can see you all.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Sean. Really appreciate it. Another really positive presentation, and it's great to see rugby's on the rise overall and the positive outcomes. Just one question I have, Andrew, is how's it going retaining our players?
Yeah, look, I think we've got a great core of players in our high-level teams, which helped with our recruitment last year. So we've got a really good core, and so people want to come back to that. They've got a group of people that they know are solid, that they know they're going to be competitive. And in terms of our young players, as Sean touched on, the amount of young players that now see themselves as part of those high-level teams helps that. People, want to be here, come to our academy, because they can see the conversion rate from the academy through to those performance team. So I think that we've gone of the days where there used to be a Manawatu tax or a Palmerston North tax, and you used to have to pay a bit extra for players to come here. Actually, we're seeing people really wanting to be part of this community. And I think, some of those high-level people like the Brett Camerons, etc., that may have sat on the bench for other unions are now saying, come to Manawatu, you get to be out there, you get to play, and you get to picked up by bigger teams and bigger opportunities to wear an All Black jersey again.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, Sean. Just on the club environment, you touched on all the other parts of community rugby and high performance rugby, but the club environment, how's the poor old clubs going?
I think they're probably a mix. I think they're probably in a mixed place. I think the challenge with what COVID presents and risk and liability and how do I manage this COVID environment is really challenging for the clubs. Not to mention sustainability, like have we got enough people to play? Have we got the right supports in place? And hence the reason for particularly employing someone as a club lead to get in beside those clubs to help support them, know what it is exactly that they need. So before we get someone saying, oh, we've withdrawn a team from competition, for example, we can explore all options for helping. I think our clubs are in a mixed health. And that's something that we will be prioritising this year. What is it that we can do to help them? Because they are, so important to Manawatu rugby. We can't do it without them.
And second question, do you decide double headers, or does somebody else decide? Like the cricket, having men's and women playing together, on the same date, like Cyclones and then Turbos, or Turbos and then Cyclones. Makes for a good spectacle. Is that going to happen again?
Well, look, just listening to James, even though our time's wrong, I reckon we could try and get two cricket and two rugby at the same time. Unfortunately, that's not in my delegated authority. That sits with New Zealand Rugby. But what I can say is that we push very hard for that here. And we say whenever there's an opportunity for a double header, we are absolutely up for that. And our teams are flexible around what playing time that might be, whether it's a Friday night game, a Saturday game, or a Sunday game. So something we definitely push for. And you would have seen that last year through us picking up that extra game against Canterbury for our girls, us being in the championship and them in the premiership competition and saying, yep, come on down, we'll have a game against you as a curtain raiser pre-game for our Turbos game. So absolutely not within my wheelhouse, but we push as much as we can. We are pushing very hard to see if we can get the Hurricanes women and men's matches back to the Manawatu also.
Fantastic, thank you.
Excellent. Councillor Harper.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, AJ and Sean, for the presentation. Just a couple of questions. One for you, AJ. The board turnover, is that a natural turnover, or is that just people resigning for what reasons?
So we've got one resignation due to the location of the person. When they started the board, they were in the Manawatu and now down south. And two have come up end of term and have decided that due to their business commitments and the impact of COVID on their business, they don't feel that they can give the time and effort that they need to the role. So disappointing to lose people, but I think we've got a really good base with some board members and directors that have been there for some time. John Whitehead still being there, for example, Tim Myers, the chair, Sarah Vining also. So some stability still there. Yeah.
Great. The second question is just looking at the championship going forward. Would the Turbos be in the same bubble in that championship? Is that the way they're going to run it? The competition? Will they be in a bubble with the same group?
Oh, sorry. You mean like the super clubs are doing at the moment? Is that what you mean? Oh, a little bit too early to tell. And I think hence the reason that we haven't really got a nailed down draw just yet. Yeah, that would be potentially one option. And again, we always put Manawatu's hand up and say we have venues and facilities here that are able to cater for competitions. So yeah, at this stage, we have been said, think about other training venues that might be available, but not complete movement of camp at this stage.
Yeah, so we definitely put our hand up for those kind of things.
Absolutely.
Because see that Taupo's put its hand up and Queenstown's put their hand up. So it'd be good
Yep.
if the whole district did as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to we were certainly in the mix for the women's game.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Great question. Thank you.
Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Just wanted to inquire about the commercial sponsorship and just how that is compared to last year and in this COVID environment. Is that still strong?
I guess I'll take this one. It's probably an area that's getting increasingly tough, which isn't surprising as businesses are looking at a third year that's COVID impacted. We do have a group of incredibly loyal sponsors who have stuck with us through it, and I would say a majority are looking to be staying on, which is great. Where the challenges is really identifying those new businesses that are feeling like they're operating strong enough in a COVID environment to add in the sponsorship of our teams. Challenging, but at this stage not terrifying.
That seems to have done the questions. Andrew and Sean, I'd just like to thank you for, like I say, a really positive presentation, and it's good to see Manawatu Rugby's in such a great place. Appreciate the work you're doing, really do. I'll just check with councillors if there's any comments. The Mayor.
Cricket got a comment, so I have to comment for rugby. Look, I suppose like the presentation before with cricket, thanks Andrea and Sean, and in terms of partnership, it goes back I think 136 years with the city and rugby. And look, it's neat to hear all the success on the field, especially the women. I can recall when I was a board member and we put the women's sevens team on the front cover of the annual report. I wasn't popular, but it was the right thing to do, and I think now the women certainly are every much part of success of the union. But I think it's off the field, the community stuff that I'm amazed at the stuff you're doing in the community. It's really, really impressive, and obviously that team culture. Encourage you with the double headers. I think that really gets families to come along, and also getting the Hurricanes back would be really good. I think they sometimes forget we exist, and encourage you to remind them that some of their fan base, or 300,000 of their fan base is up the road past Wellington. So thank you.
Thanks very much, and just also like to acknowledge the support that you, some of you individually and then collectively at the council have either given me or Manawatu Rugby, numerous years prior to me, but particularly last year coming in new and picking things up, and your support from your officers, staff, Sport Manawatu and our other codes online too, just to acknowledge that. Thank you so much. And I could assure you, I remind the Hurricanes at every opportunity that they wouldn't have the Hurricanes women without Manawatu, and half the men as well. I will keep batting that one for you.
Excellent. Canterbury wouldn't have a rugby team either without Manawatu. Like I said, Andrea, Sean, thanks very much. Much appreciated. Councillors, we have a recommendation to receive the presentation. I'll look to move that, and seconded Councillor Hancock. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. That brings us on to our final presentation from Sport Manawatu, and C. Trevor Shaler and General Manager Brad Cassidy.
Kia ora tātou, Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
There you go. Kia ora tātou tēnei ngā mihi kia tātou katoa, kua tatu mai nei tēnei wā, no reira I akuru rangatira mā ngā morangi ngā hapai o ki muri kanu ngā mihi kia tātou. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. It's great sitting in and listening to our colleagues with Manawatu Cricket and Manawatu Rugby. Brad's done a fantastic job of putting some slides together, which we're not going to use, because I'm pretty good like that. If you don't mind, what we'll do is we'll take the report that we've provided as read, because what we want to do is provide a bit of a sector update, state of sector update, and obviously you've heard from two sports specifically. So it would be good for us to sort of just work our way through and try and leave more time for some questions, is what I'm aiming to do today. So in terms of providing a bit of an overview, it's clear that we've got a game of two halves, excuse the pun, but you know, you've got the challenges that everybody's been facing with COVID, but then you've got the other challenge of how sports have had to adjust and cope with the existing environment. So, you know, I do want to acknowledge the work that cricket, rugby and lots of our other sports have done to try and figure their way through all of the different requirements that are changing constantly, and I appreciate that the council is in the same space as well. But in effect, the impact that we've had with it on participation rates is there's been a drop in the number of activities and in participation rates across the board. So that's at a national level that's happening. So there was early signs of recovery in the first round of COVID, but as things have gone on, it's been progressively gone down. We've had funding available called the Tū Manawa Fund to be able to support providers in terms of activating young people to get out there and be active, particularly those ones that aren't currently active. We've again seen a drop in the uptake of the funding for that, which again I think has been you know, an indication of the challenges that providers are having with meeting all the different requirements that are required. I think the other thing that we need to consider is obviously your presentations around the sporting codes. There's the bigger aspect around the health and well-being of the sector itself, but also of young people and the role that sport plays with physical health and mental health. So again, we have had to adjust how the work that we've been doing. So for example, working into some of the communities. The most recent activity obviously was the holiday program that we organised with 11 sports. Again, that was run during the Red Alert system, and it was just a challenge around working to get that across the line. But I have to acknowledge the work of CET Arena. Again, I think it's a bit easier with the indoor facility to manage that process. So we're really pleased to get that across the line. And it is something that we will be working on into the future. But if I can just turn my attention, and this will be the last point, and then I'll leave it open for some questions. There's still some bigger challenges and opportunities for us to think about while the sports are working their way through their own challenges. The biggest sector challenges still relate to you know, the opportunity to continue to adjust and change to the environment, and to look at a future focus of around what sport's going to look like in the future. So, and that's things like shared services. You know, there's a position obviously advertised for GM for hockey. Again, there's a discussion around what does that look like, what do we might need to change, so we're leaning in on that conversation. We've done lots of work around diversity and inclusion to start looking across the sector to see what we need to do collectively. While it's great that individual sports are doing some awesome work, there's still work to be done around how that plays out for the sector. I'm pleased to report that we've got new board members, similar to AJ. You know, it's good to have some turnover. It is tough being volunteers, putting your hand up into this space. So we're really pleased to welcome new board members who joined at our AGM in October last year. So that's a really exciting time. We've made the decision, I'm not sure that we did something public, but we made the decision that we wouldn't be building a sports house. So the exciting thing there is that the board has some reserve money that they've been saving for that project. So again, we're going to be doing quite a lot of work into how we redistribute that funding back to the community and what does that look like in terms of sustainability, where will be the areas that we're going to focus in on. So there is some exciting times ahead for us because we're going to have some resourcing of our own to be able to lean into rather than be asking for having our hand out, so to speak. Look, I think that's a reasonable update from my perspective. Sport Manawatu, we have probably grown quite significantly in the last little while. So we've got somewhere in the vicinity of, we had two new staff start in January, and we've had 3 or 4 start last year. So we're probably up towards nearly our full complement of around 34 staff. So, which is exciting for those GMs out there. So what I'll do is I'll flick it to Brad, see if Brad's got any other additional comments that he would like to make. Luckily, we didn't use the slides. And I'm happy to have an open discussion and have obviously lean into some of the conversation. Brad, have you got anything you would like to add, sir?
I'm not sure if I'm cutting in and out. Just more about our ability to probably be nimble and respond to the needs of our community through our sport partners. And it's a really big thumbs up to the sports that are enabling our community to fulfil their competition requirements. We have to. We can't throw everything out in terms of making sure that we understand the makeup of our community, and for a number of them, in fact, if I recall back to the 30-something thousand members of clubs, they get their fix from competitive sport. So for some codes that they've been able to adapt quite quickly, but for other codes, not so much, and that's significantly probably because of the bubble restrictions. We've had some really good, robust discussions. Thanks, James. But they've been great because without those discussions, we wouldn't be in a position to have assurances, and particularly from a council perspective, given that this also looks at service level agreements, that our community is doing its utmost to support the broader needs. Yeah, thank you. I'll leave all the curly questions for Trevor to answer.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Trevor. The Mayor.
Thanks, gentlemen, for giving us a bit of a sector update. Just a question around the, and it's in your report, but I'll just tease it out a little bit more, because it underpins especially secondary school events for the city. Are those multi-year deals pretty strategic?
Yeah, they are strategic. Obviously, with the cancellation of some of those events has been quite significant, has a significant impact on, the local economy. But we've got good relationships with the secondary school sports and the NSOs, so we're hopeful that we will continue on with getting those across the line in the next little while. So there is ongoing discussions with them. But again, everybody's dealing with how best to manage it. We're waiting for quite a significant recommendation to come out of Secondary School Sport New Zealand. So again, that will create a topic of discussion as well. But I think, Grant, we're still in a really good position to continue to be supportive of those national sports and getting behind those events in our city.
And thanks, Trevor. And just the second question's really around the SERP funding, the sports event funding, and I note there that you're supportive of your council's sort of events funding policy as well, and one would hope that to eliminate any double dipping, but one would hope everyone is talking to each other and people know what's going on. But you say here it's really important for some legacy pieces as well, and you sort of mentioned the softball stadium at Coronation Park. So is that continuing to be a really important fund or attraction piece for sport to come here?
Oh, definitely. I think the funding is helpful. I think you would have heard from James and AJ around the challenges in that space. So it's great that this council is so supportive in that space. However, when lots of people find out about it, the money shrinks. So it's got to really work at a strategic level, and it makes sense at a strategic level given the legacy infrastructure that the council has put in the facility. It makes sense to continue to support Softball NZ, but also it's not about just giving the money to get them to come here. There's all those other factors. So it's also about growing the volunteer base. We've got to have the support and the structure in place. The other part of that legacy is not just the infrastructure, is that the club itself is strong. And again, I think you're going to see some more amalgamations. You're going to see more mergers of sports. You're going to see, it is going to be a tough space when everybody competes against each other. Our job is to try and do stuff knowingly with our partners, with our colleagues. We want young people, and we want our residents to be everyone active every day. If that's playing rugby, cricket, it's getting them out there. We know with COVID that the underlying health issues is a major challenge if you get COVID. We think physical activity, being physically active, should be part of the overall strategy here.
Thank you.
Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, Brad. Just in regards to the sports house that you mentioned that you've now changed and not pursuing that, what's changed as far as the thinking? Because that's been a long-term commitment in your plans and for a period now.
I was hoping to bob and weave with one of those questions, Councillor Dennison, but I can't even use any other sporting terms like sidestep or, I don't know, I'm not sure what a cricket term is. Look, to be honest, the environment also that we're in, where the cost of building it's just not feasible. There are other facilities out there that we could and should consider as part of it. But also in reality, the impact of COVID and the fact that we've got an office lease means that we can continue to be nimble. We can continue. So, for example, our current sublease in the square is due to end in August. But the truth, it's a great facility, good profile, lovely to see. I see that many council workers walk past to go for coffees. And so the profile for us in the city has been really great, but the building might not be big enough for what we need in a COVID environment with social distancing and stuff. So we've got the opportunity to change how we might want to operate in that space. We couldn't have done that if we had a building, but the silver lining is the fact that we have a reserve that is surplus. Well, it's not surplus to requirements. It means that it can be refocused on how we might utilise that fund to support the wider sector. And so the board will be working through some criteria around what could that look like? What type of projects do we want to be doing? So, I mean, I think it's an exciting opportunity for the new board.
Councillor Johnson.
Sorry, just problems getting myself off mute. Thank you, Trevor and Brad, for the presentation. I guess, the overall picture isn't that encouraging for activity level for younger people at the moment. So just sort of taking a kind of a big picture view, is there anything you think that we could or should be doing as council to address that?
Great question for Brad.
Yeah, so one of the things you may have seen in that in our report, Councillor Johnson, is that whilst we've had to cancel our Everyone Active Festival, we've gone to virtual. So we did this as part of our 2019-2020 year, I think it was, when we first had our lockdown. I mean, that was really a response to from our residents saying what were the things that were most important to them. And so this, what we call bubble bingo, that was just named yesterday. Bubble bingo was using our current situation, maximising the opportunities to say, look, there's lots of cool things out there. Let's set some challenges. It's not all doom and gloom. And be willing to try different things. I suppose what we're saying is that that's an all of region approach. We want to test that, so there's some fast fails in it. And then if it works, is understand what others are doing to try and encourage activity. And that could be from, that might mean some funding could be required, and our CE mentioned about our reserves could be one approach. The other one could be if there are ways that the Sports Event Partnership Fund could support regional events rather than national level events. That could be a good use of resident or ratepayer funding to contribute to the needs of our city, but also supporting our regional partners or collaborators.
Okay, thanks, Brad. I could see Trevor's body language wasn't all that positive when you mentioned using the reserves, but
No, I mean, it's a great debate to have. We just don't want to overpromise. So I think we're going to step our way through lightly. But the good thing with the reserve is, it's meant to be for a rainy day. And if you ask me, it's been pouring for some time now.
Yeah.
So we've made some decisions, and I'm pretty confident that our organisation will be able to, be in that space to support others.
Yeah. And if it's okay, Mr. Chairman, just another quick topic from me, which is around the Two Manawa Fund, which you said was undersubscribed, but I was aware that it funded some water safety training for our Karen community recently, and I wondered if it was possible for that water safety training to be expanded to some of our other former refugee communities in the city.
Sorry, Lorna, you're just cutting out. I can't hear. Were you asking about funding? No, I'm just joking. Look, I'm sure that we can lean into that. There, yeah. So we've got an administrator. So the key thing would be to talk to our administrator. We have a role in terms of making sure that we're helping people put those applications together. So yeah.
So it's a yes.
Short answer, we're being put on the spot is of course.
Lovely. That's just what I wanted to hear. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Harper.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I came in and out of the queue because Councillor Dennison asked my question. But just wanting to think about just what Brad said about going forward, looking into the future, which codes do you think could be in trouble going forward? Just trying to think about what might need assistance in the next few months with this Omicron variant. Which codes do you think might need some support in the next few months? And we've got to think we're going into the winter, and I know we're going to need a crystal ball, but you are the sporting support system, so I'm just thinking, which codes do you think might need some support in the next few months, which we are going to need to have a look at?
Another good question, Councillor Harpiter. Let me look. I think the key thing that we want to look at is certainly with the opportunity now for us to be able to have some resource to be able to support the sector, is to think about short-term and long-term, because clearly their survival is based on competitions. So when those competitions are impacted, it means less revenue, less cash flow. You've got less funders who are wanting to fund back of house functions. They're wanting to see more front-facing roles. So, and then you're having to jump through more hoops. So again, there's a bigger piece that we need to try and answer that I think we should be putting some money aside to think about what looking ahead looks like, you know, amalgamations, all that sort of stuff. But there are, you know, obviously Hockey Manawatu has lost their GM. They're out advertising at the moment, which we're supporting them with. I'm probably wanting them to take a step back, but as you can imagine, you know, if they don't get another GM, somebody on the board, one of the volunteers has got to start doing the work. So again, we might need to think about how we might support them in an immediate sense. So, Councillor Harper, it is a hard question to answer. I think what I would say is, you know, if council can match our contribution, it will be fantastic.
Interesting. No, I can't answer that question, but thank you very much.
Thank you, though. I thought it was worth a try.
I might just also just jump in. Just the outdoor codes are doing a great job to try and manage, especially open space facilities where you've got open access, and they're doing their safety plans really robust. Indoor courts, and I want to use CT Arena. That's not the same equitable option. So from a security perspective, yes, it is. But when you've got Arena 4 and B&M within the one airspace, it's 100 people. And when you marry that up against the numbers of indoor participants, they are really long competition draws. So if you were looking at something tangible, that would be one off the top of my my head. I'm not suggesting that that's the case, but when we look at participation and membership in its purest sense, we have to look at what's the impact of the restrictions meant on ability for codes to deliver competition.
Councillor Hancock.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Trevor and Brad. My question's really a number of questions, which I'll try and phrase into one here, which is really around the Healthy Active Learnings program. And I see that's a 3-year program, and currently we've got 6 schools actually signed up to that, and they've been in there for 6 months so far. Who developed the program, firstly? Is there an evaluation timetable over time through that 3-year period? And is there any plans to actually then roll other schools into that during that 3-year period? I'm just thinking about this in terms, I guess, of building social capital in some of our more challenged areas of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hancock. So that's one question with three parts, is how I read that. So it's very, very good of you. Healthy Active Learning is an initiative from the Sport NZ Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education. So we're the second wave. So they did a couple of pilots 2 or 3 years ago, and then they have rolled out the first pilot in a range of other regions, and we were always scheduled to be the second wave. So we were fortunate enough to move our process forward, and we employed our staff, mid last year, which has meant they've been able to develop the relationships. You will note, though, that the schools that have been chosen based on a range of factors and deprivation and so forth. So, in effect, I think, and you're going to put me on the spot here, we're actually working into currently 24 schools. Those are just the schools that are in the Palmerston North City region. So, again, we were only funded for a certain amount of schools, and because there's only a certain number that actually qualified for the program. So the evaluation is being done independently of us, and it's being done by Sport NZ. So look, what I can say is we've had really, really good uptake of the program to date. We've got a really good team leader. We've got 2 really good workers and activators who are working into the schools. So, I'm pretty positive about it. There is the possibility that it might also work through to the secondary school level as well. So I'm not sure if I've answered all of your questions, but the idea is it will hopefully roll out, but it's still going to be dependent on funding. So at least we've got a 3-year fund for it. And yeah, I hope that answers your questions.
Yeah, thanks, Trevor, mostly, I guess, but the last part was really just around whether there are any opportunities to actually roll other schools into the program within that three-year period, or are we kind of sort of stuck with those 6 schools for that 3-year period?
Yeah, I'm not sure that saying stuck with those schools is what we're looking for, but we do have them on board. There is potential for other schools to be on board. We have partnered with, so basically each school gets asked whether or not they want to participate, and it's totally their decision because there's a resourcing part to it. But one of the things that we said to Sport NZ was there were something like 22, 24 schools that actually were given the opportunity to participate, but we actually provided an additional fund to make sure that we could capture a couple of other schools as part of that process. So Murray's been able to work it so that we've been able to bring in other schools. So all I'm saying to you is, yes, there is potential there. We'll see how we go after the first year, was probably my diplomatic answer to those one question with 3 parts. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Trevor. Very agile as always.
Trevor and Brad, I've just got something I want to throw out there. I, along with other councillors, received a number of emails around non-vaccinated children swimming, adult swimming, as well as a number of questions on the street. I'm just curious, is Sport Manawatu had the same communication? Yep. We've dealt with a number of that, and it's also been dealt with clearly at a national level, and we're having to follow the guidelines that we've been given. I can't really speak about the swimming one or the kids at that level, but certainly for our green prescription programs and some of the other programs, we are running online activities for some of those communities where they've chosen not to be vaccinated. So again, there are ways around it, but we are sticking to the guidelines that we've been given. It is, hopefully things are going to change, but your guess will be as good as mine at this stage. Okay, so just to throw the cat amongst the pigeons, We have pool mandates where you've got to be vaccinated to swim. How long is it going? How long is there a way around that you think we could have non-vaccinated active, as in our goal, everybody active?
Well, at this stage, Councillor, it's really about the venues. You know, it's the venue providers have a process that they have to go through, and again, all I can say is, and the best advice that we give is around the guidelines that we've been given from the ministry and Sport NZ around that space. And again, I know that they've had some national attention around that, but I think, I'm not sure I'm doing very well answering your question, but we are very conscious of those families that have made that decision, and we are doing the best we can within the guidelines that we've got.
If I can jump in, I think what we've talked about as a team is identifying what are those opportunities that are not hamstringing individuals who have chosen either option.
Like outdoor.
Correct. So I guess what we're trying to do is encourage people to explore what those opportunities look like, and it might not be their first preference, but that could be the same for those that have vaccinated as well. So they would like to be doing something different, but they may not be able to afford it. So I suppose sales pitch, bubble bingo, anyone? Just watch this space. But obviously the questions won't go away. And I think we need to be conscious that we're exploring different opportunities along with which is our vision, everyone active.
Excellent, thank you. I don't see any other questions. Comments, councillors? Do we have any comments? The Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, again, thanks, Trevor and Brad, for that update. I think in these difficult times, and I think the councillors teased out some really relevant questions of keeping sport and activity and recreation really relevant in these difficult and challenging times. I do really appreciate the work you've done around those events, because again, the event sector, on top of not only just being sport, but just being destroyed as far as not being able to hold events. So getting back those sports on those multi-year agreements, I think, is quite important for the city. We're in competition with a lot of other cities, and as you say, the sports talk, and they all know that there is some funding there, but it's more than just funding. It's making sure that we've got the volunteer base, the facilities, and all that capability in behind to make sure that their sport experience here is really, really good. So thanks for all the work you're doing, as always. Thank you.
Once again, Brad, Trevor, thank you. As just repeat what the Mayor said, thank you for the work you're doing, for your initiatives, for opening up and trying new things. But we'll keep moving. I'll keep knocking on your door. Cheers. Thank you. I'll just look to move the recommendation that Play, Recreation and Sport Committee receive the presentation for information. Sorry, I think we've got somebody else who wants to speak. Councillor Johnson.
Well, thanks, Mr. Chair. I'd given up. I thought I'd just been overlooked again.
Well, we tried to.
No, I just wanted to echo the words of thanks to Sport Manawatu. And I think, in particular, I've really appreciated the way that you've been working with some of the, let's say, non-traditional communities to get them involved in sport. And, I was delighted to hear at the water safety event at the weekend that, the funding had come from the Two Manawa Fund through Sport Manawatu. And, I know that that's not council money, but nevertheless, it's doing good in our community and it needs to be acknowledged. So thank you.
Excellent. Okay, I'm not missing anybody this time. Going once. Okay, thank you. So I'll look to move those recommendations. We have a seconder, Councillor Dennison, and asking everybody to vote by a show of hands. And that's passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Councillors, I'll ask you to move on now to page number 19 for confirmation of the minutes. Okay, moved by Councillor Dennison. Is your seconder? Seconded by Councillor Barrett. Any questions on the minutes? No, I'll look to move those minutes. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. That moves us on to page 25 for the committee work schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's been some adjustments there which are shown in red, or track changes, so I don't have anything further to add. Obviously, items 2 and 3, it's best that they come together and they'll be coming to the April committee.
If I could just make a comment, I know we've had a couple of chats about this, but on the options of council land, as it was put forward as a separate motion, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would see that as not a major job to put into place. What I need to understand is 4 months since our last meeting, why it's not ready for this meeting.
There is progress occurring on it. For reports to hit this meeting, they really need to be finished by the end of January. We had key staff on leave during the bulk of January, so there has been good progress, and as I said, it will be coming to April alongside the broader update on the gym sports project. So as I said, they're probably best that those two reports come together anyway.
Okay, that's a matter of opinion. Anybody? Any questions? Comments? Okay, we'll move the committee work schedule. Is there a seconder? Councillor Dennison. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody. I'll now look to close the Play Recreation and Sports Committee, and we'll adjourn for about 2 seconds while we change over. Thank you.